When I first arrived at Auburn in 2008, I visited two buildings on campus that changed the way I view the world. Those two buildings were the Rouse Life Sciences Center and the RBD Library. My first time in the Rouse Life Sciences Center was serendipitous. I happened to be walking along, and I walked through the atrium of this beautiful building and happened across all these poster presentations, much like the presentations you'll see outside. And the faculty and doctoral students of the Life Sciences Center were presenting their research. So I was viewing these things, all about various biological phenomena, and one of them caught my eye. It was about fighting blue jays. I'm sorry, not these fighting blue jays, these fighting blue jays. These researchers theorized that the color of a blue jay was a visible signal of its underlying strength. And so to test their idea, they took some poor hapless blue jays and they colored them brightly with blue magic marker so that all the other blue jays would think these are like the bionic blue jay, right? And they let these things out into the wild, and sure enough, it worked. All the lady blue jays loved these other blue jays. For a little while, eventually these blue jays got the crap kicked out of them because they were signaling that they were stronger than all the others, but they really weren't. And so when the rubber met the road, they were in trouble. Well, these researchers talked about a phenomenon called signaling. So let me give you an example of this. Imagine that you are a gazelle in sub-Saharan Africa, and you spot a lion eyeing you up for its next meal. What do? You run, right? Yeah. Only the funny thing is, that's not what gazelles do. They jump up and down in place. Look at me. I'm strong and healthy. Don't chase after me, or you'll just get tired and go hungry. This is called stotting, and it works. The lions don't chase these gazelles. So this got me wondering, I wonder if this sort of thing happens among humans. And I was reminded of a sociologist by the name of Thorstein Veblen, who wrote a book in 1899 called The Theory of the Leisure Class. And this led me to the second building on campus, which is the RBD Library, where I found Veblen's book. Veblen wrote about what he called conspicuous consumption. Back in the late 19th century, people were trying to communicate their status to one another. And how could they do that? By spending lavishly, without concern for the financial consequences. Look at what Veblen had to say about lavish spending. Conspicuous consumption of valuable goods is a means of reputability to the gentleman of leisure. The aid of friends and competitors is brought in by resorting to the giving of valuable presents and expensive feasts and entertainments. Presents and feasts had probably another origin than that of naive ostentation, but they acquired their utility for this purpose very early, and they have retained that character to the present. And a little later in his book, he talks about why people had indentured servants and house help in their home. For the chief use of servants is the evidence they afford of the master's ability to pay. In other words, Veblen was among the first to argue that we engage in conspicuous consumption in order to impress and demonstrate our worth to those around us. And we do this today, don't we? Right? And why do I have this $400 Mont Blanc pen? Because it writes so well? No, because I want people to say, "Oop, he's got a Mont Blanc pen. He must be someone important." Well, this is going on all the time around us, this kind of signaling. Think, if you will, of a young man making a marriage proposal to a young woman. What does he do? He takes out from his pocket an expensive diamond ring, a visible signal of his unobservable intentions. He's saying, "I'm serious about this, and I'm not going to back out." Right? Or imagine, if you will, a college football coach who rolls up to a high school in a Hummer limousine, right, with an entourage of assistants. What's he doing? He's signaling. He's saying, "Look at all the resources that we will devote to you This is signaling theory. Signaling theory is all about how people make informed choices among a choice set in a noisy environment. So for example, how an actor, maybe a gazelle or a businessman, engages in expensive and costly signaling, maybe jumping up and down or wearing expensive items, to communicate to the one making the selection, either a lion or a business client, that they are of higher quality than all the others in the choice set, presumably because the others can't jump as high or can't afford such expensive luxuries. Well, this was the subject of our paper in 2011 with some researchers from Arizona State University, Sam Houston State University, and another university that goes by the name of Texas A&M. Yes, collective sigh. I understand we're going to be engaging in some sort of sporting contest on Saturday with them. I worked together with these researchers to develop these ideas and to put them into a comprehensive framework where we reviewed how everybody was using signaling theory and identified the underlying assumptions of the theory, the main constructs of the theory, and the recipes that this theory puts forward. This paper was published in one of our most prestigious journals, the Journal of Management. And 5 years after papers are published, the Journal of Management looks back and says, now which of these papers had the most scholarly impact? And so I'm pleased to say that a month ago, they made that selection, and our paper was determined to have the greatest scholarly impact 5 years later. Part of the reason being that this paper has been used not only in business and departments of accounting and finance, but also by sociologists and biologists and psychologists and in education. So, as you might imagine, being in the College of Business, I am constantly on the lookout for how firms are signaling within and between organizations. And you might have heard we're doing a lot with entrepreneurship in the College of Business. So if you think about from an entrepreneurial perspective, there's an old adage that says necessity is the mother of invention, right? Well, our good friend Veblen saw it differently. Veblen said, invention is the mother of necessity. What did he mean by that? Yeah, he says, just imagine for a second that you're an entrepreneur. Right? And you've got this idea, and you know if you could just take it to the next level, that it would be pure dynamite. But you've spent all your money, you've maxed your credit cards, you've tapped out your friends and family, and now what do you need? Money, right? Money from people you've probably never met. You need some initial external capital. That was the question that we asked with some researchers from Western University in Canada and Washington State University. We had access to a unique data set where we had every entrepreneurial startup company in the state of Oklahoma, right down to the smallest mom and pop shop selling jewelry in their garage. Right? And we asked, what's the likelihood that these companies would receive external capital? Well, it turns out only a couple % of these companies are ever going to get money outside of their own social circles. So we said, now what are the signals that they can send to increase their chances of external capital? First thing we looked at was, do they move out and get into commercial property? And this sends a signal because it communicates an air of legitimacy about the startup. And sure enough, 5% of these companies get external capital. And then we said, well, what if they have a product that they can show off? And now they can say, this is not just a pipe dream, but here's something that we have to offer, and you can try it out. And this too increases the likelihood of external capital. The third thing was the most important signal, and that was the experience of the founder. Now, the experience of the founder increases the likelihood up to 10%. And this is saying that, look, investors want to give their money to somebody who knows the ropes a little bit. Problem is, these numbers are still kind of small. Yeah? So this is signaling theory, but not what we were hoping for. So then we split our data. That's when we uncovered something really interesting. We looked at companies, startup companies, that were affiliated with some kind of business incubator or accelerator or startup space or a venture development organization. And here was the result. Boom, right? Yeah, what happens is all of these entrepreneurial signals where entrepreneurs are saying, look at me, invest in me, I'm better than all the others out there. They come to fruition when there's an external third party that can endorse those signals and validate those signals. So this is a new twist on signaling theory because it says that the entrepreneurial signals remain relatively dormant until they're validated by a third party. We've just touched on the tip of the signaling theory iceberg today, but I hope that you've learned a little bit, enough to maybe think about your own life and organizations and how you might be using visible, costly signals to communicate unobservable qualities. Thank you.